Greetings, field instructors and students. This is Greg, the Director of Field Education. This brief webinar is intended to help you work together to develop an excellent year of learning. So thanks for tuning in. You'll learn about some key concepts, roles and responsibilities, as well as procedural information. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that professional education is competency-based, and that is true for social work as well. I wanted to emphasize the 9 competencies on which field placements are based. The first 5 are more task-based, and you can see 1, 3, 4, and 5 are actually fairly self-evident. Social workers engage the people that they work with. They assess the people, families, groups, and organizations and communities they work with. They plan and implement intervention, and they're always working to improve systems of care. The second one has to do with consultation, coordination, and collaboration. This means essentially working with people outside of the client system, whatever it may be, to improve the system situation. So if you're working with a child, for example, it'll mean attending to the parents, attending to the school, attending to the teacher and the principal. If you're working with an elder, it's going to mean attending to whatever environment that elder's living in, the caregiving system, so on and so forth. For macro students, this might mean that you work with one team as part of your placement, but that you're working with surrounding teams as well. And so how do you use the information from the other teams to accomplish your project? Competencies 6, 7, 8, and 9 have to do with professionalism and are very context specific. So for example, professional communication, if you're the field instructor, we really want you to spell out for the student what's expected in your context regarding written and verbal communication, including use of electronic records or email system. The rules of communication in a storefront, community-based nonprofit, and a hospital or a county child welfare agency are markedly different. So please be very, very specific with the student on the learning agreement about what your expectation is for your context. Same thing for ethics. What are the dilemmas that frequently emerge? Same things for conduct. What do you expect in terms of timeliness, punctuality, time management, meeting deadlines, so on and so forth. And the 9th is related to student growth and development, expecting students to show initiative, to be receptive to feedback, to integrating feedback to improve their performance, and demonstrating sort of excellence as a learner. Students, because they're students, this is an internship that's meant to not help them do that which they already know how to do, but to expand into new realms. And so it requires assessment and conversation between the student and field instructor. What are the things available that the student can do that they can sort of rise into with the support of field instruction, but not things that are so complex that it's really beyond their capacity. Thinking ahead about the tasks is critical. So probably if you look at the front of the slide, there's this nexus between what the agency needs in terms of its services and what the student needs to learn in order to develop into a professional. So we ask for you to look for that win-win where the student's learning is supported as well as the agency's needs are met by the student. It's in that reciprocity that the best field placement arrangements occur. We also ask you to think about the range of duties that the student has available to themselves. So, for example, if they're a micro student and they're working mostly with individuals, can they have one individual client who's really embedded within a family where that's going to be part of the care? Can they be part of a group or a team meeting? Can they be involved in one organizational or community-based project? So thinking sort of across the levels of social ecology, we look for a range. We also look for a range of engagement, assessment, and intervention. So for example, if you're a mobile crisis team, you're gonna get a lot, the student's gonna get a lot of skills with engagement and assessment and crisis intervention, but is there 1 or 2 clients they could do intermediate sort of following so that intervention gets with a little more range of intervention, in other words. So we want you to think about range, quantity. Students really shouldn't be doing the same loads as paid staff, but they need to be really busy. No one wants to sit around and do their homework and not have enough to do when they're excited to learn. So finding that just right quantity, and as mentioned from the prior slide, the just right complexity. These are all parts of developing an excellent learning agreement. We want to be really clear and transparent that there are 3 roles that are interacting around the entire placement and certainly around the learning agreement. The student has primary responsibility for actually developing the learning agreement. They are expected to identify their learning goals, interview their field instructor about what activities or tasks are feasible within the agency context, also to consider what the agency constraints are. So there may be something they really want to learn, but it's just not going to work for the agency at this particular point in time. They're responsible for finalizing and submitting the draft on our Sonia system. So students, you'll receive an email with a link, and you're going to be responsible for inputting everything on that link. Field instructors, we need you to make sure that the tasks and activities match the student's goals, that all 9 competencies may be picked up by the task assignments, and that the range, quantity, and complexity of tasks are appropriate. And we also ask you to be overall responsible for the student's learning, and you hold the final right to approve or request revisions on the student's learning agreement. After the student has completed the draft and discussed it with you, they enter it on the system, they click submit, you will get an email with a link, and then you get to go in and you have final editing rights. You can absolutely request revision if you don't agree with certain things that appear in the draft that you are approving. Supervising field faculty are responsible ultimately for approving the agreement for educational purposes. We conduct site visits and review evaluations at the end of each semester, and we enter final grades. We're always available to consult or troubleshoot, and we also are assessing whether agencies or field instructors are a good match for our students for future use as well. So when the 3 of these folks all interact in a really helpful, constructive way, it leads to excellent learning for all 3. The learning agreement has basic information, which includes names, addresses, the student learning schedule. Our first-year students, they're in placement on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Those are fixed days. Second-year students typically are in placement Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. It specifies the student's overall learning goals, so that's really clear to everyone who looks at the document. And then it also specifies the main projects or task assignments or activities that are going to be part of the student learning. So it may say for a direct practice student, 1 intake per week, 5 to 8 individual clients, 1 to 2 groups, and participation in the agency's cultural competence committee, for example. For a macro student, it would involve the projects or tasks that the student was going to work on. It may be a program evaluation, a needs assessment. It might be some kind of project management for implementation, so on and so forth. Writing a grant. For the competencies related to engagement, consultation, assessment, intervention, and systemic intervention, please specify that the tasks that are going to be where those particular competencies are observed, and then also the very specific agency-based expectations related to professional behaviors as described earlier. The last component of the learning agreement includes some specific deliverables. So for a direct practice student, a deliverable might be a case presentation that includes their Word doc, or a genogram. It could include a court report that they've written or an intake evaluation they've written up. It could include any number of sort of clinical records. For a macro student, it could be a grant that they've written. It could be executive summary of some kind of report, but something that really is concrete and a deliverable part of the work that they've done for you. And then also 2 to 3 observable activities So it might be that you observe a student doing a home visit, that you watch them leading a collaborative meeting, that you watch them participating in an interdisciplinary team meeting at your site. It may be that you sit in during an intake, things of this nature where you can directly observe the student engaging in the work. Field instructors, after the student and you have come up with an agreeable template, then you're going to get an email from us, and you're going to also check some boxes that indicate you understand the following. And students, it's super important that you understand these are the rules as well. That students must receive a 1-month orientation to practice and must receive a minimum of 1 hour per week of field instruction. Students must have access to office space and equipment in order to perform the tasks. Students are never allowed to transport clients in their own vehicle. They may use an agency vehicle, however. They should not be assigned clients whose needs exceed their availability and ability. So case selection for student appropriate cases is critical for the clinical students. We ask that students who are bilingual or from underrepresented groups, that their rights and needs are taken into consideration. We don't like to see that those students have an overwhelming load assigned to them, even though they have special competencies that are needed. And we do want to make sure that the environment in the agency is affirming and not hostile to folks from different groups. And finally, we ask students and field instructors to be in immediate touch with us, the supervising field faculty, when there are conflicts or concerns, when there's been an adverse event in which student safety, physically or emotionally, has been put at risk, or when there's any risk for placement disruption for any reason. These are the field faculty on our faculty currently. Please feel free to email swfield@berkeley.edu if you don't know who the field faculty member is assigned to your placement. Students, it's always going to be the field faculty member who leads your field seminar, and our faculty pages are available on our website. And last but not least, we want to thank you. We really value our relationships with students that go on for many, many years when you become alumni. We also value our relationships in agencies and with training coordinators and field instructors. All three of us are collaborating together to build a strong profession to serve underrepresented communities. Problems do occur in our relationships. We're very, very committed to transparency, understanding, communication, negotiation, and finding mutually agreeable and reciprocal solutions. Thanks for paying attention, and hope that you enjoy mapping out your year of learning.